In this next lesson, we're going to take a look at the open item management concepts within X3. So this can be useful to you in cases where you have a supplier or maybe a particular invoice that you wish to place on hold. So the first level of control that we can take a look at is actually on the supplier level. So to get to the supplier, if we come to our common data menu, we're going to go down to BPs, then to suppliers. Then here on the suppliers, we're going to come over to the management tab. So a couple different things to note within here. One, we have this payment hold block that we can set. So in the event that you enter into some type of dispute with the supplier and you wish to withhold any further payments to the supplier, you can go ahead and check that box. Now, with this being said, you're still going to be able to enter in purchase orders and you're still going to be able to enter in invoices from the supplier, but you're not going to be able to do any payments, checks, or wire transfers to them. In addition to that, we have this dispute section down here. So in this dispute block, the no setting here is an indicator that everything is fine with the supplier. You have a warning setting here, which is kind of just that really. It's kind of just a soft stop. It will basically, when you're entering in a PO, it'll give you an indication that there's a potential problem with the supplier, but it will let for the purchase order to be entered. Then finally here we have this hold setting right here, which is going to prohibit the entry of the purchase order. Okay, so that is the first kind of line of defense that we have there. Now, if there's disputes on individual invoices, what you can do, let's go to our supplier BP invoice. So down under APAR accounting, we're going to go to invoicing, then supplier BP invoices. Then within here, what we'll see is over on the right hand side we have this open items button. We can go ahead and click on that, and in this open items button, this is going to give us information in regards to the due date, the payment method, and if we come across here we have the pay approval field. So if we, for instance, we could change this from an authorized to pay status, hit the drop down menu, and basically choose any of these other three options, which will result in the voucher being put on hold. Okay, so you would not be able to pay the invoice, for instance, if it was set to a conflict status, which is the one that I'll typically utilize. So I could set it as such, come over here and click on OK, and that will go ahead and update the payment approval status. Now what you'll see the same concept on the invoice control function for your PO invoices. You'll have that same open items functionality. Okay, so again, the payment approval status can be managed on an invoice by invoice basis. Now alternatively, we can do this also on a batch basis. So if I close page out of here, and under open items, we're going to come to open item management. We'll go ahead and specify the company that we want to run it on. And if it's just one specific supplier, I'm going to come and uncheck my all paying BPs. And then I'll come over and specify my supplier's account number. Then down in this block here, I have different pay approval settings. So for instance, if I wanted to pull up all the vouchers for that supplier that had an authorized to pay status, I'll go ahead and set my first and my last payment approval both to authorized to pay. Come over and click on the OK. And this is going to open up for me a little payment approval workbench. And in here, I can use this to manage my pay approval status. So for instance, I can come over, scroll to this pay approval column, and maybe it's this voucher number 13 through 15 that I wish to delay payment on or prohibit payment on. I can come in here and set that accordingly. If I wanted to withhold payment on all these items, if I click on after I update the payment approval to conflict, if I click on the action button and go to update column, that'll go ahead and flag all those accordingly, with the exception of this credit memo down here. Then I can go ahead and save it, and that in part will set all those items to a conflict status. Then, at a later point in time, if the dispute with the supplier is now resolved and I want to go ahead and release all those items, I can come back in here once again, specify the supplier's account number and the payment approval range. I'm going to say show me everything that has a conflict status. Go ahead and say OK here. And that will give me my list of items. And once again, I can come over and to my pay approval column, flip that over to authorize to pay, click on my action button, update column. That will flip all the remaining items. Then I can go ahead and do a save to change them all back. Okay, so those are the primary principles behind the payment approval or the open item management within X3.